Today on Belonging in Classrooms, you are going to get to learn a lot. We're going to hear from Paula Cole, who is an amazing leader in Minneapolis Public Schools. She's not technically hired by Minneapolis Public Schools, but she is a former Minneapolis Public School teacher. And her organization, Educators for Excellence, is really focusing in on the READ Act that the state of Minnesota passed last year, which is really talking a lot about the fact that we have a certain way that our children need to learn to read, the science of reading. What does it mean? Where are we at? If you're a parent listening to this and you're like, I never heard of this before, guess what? Today is the day you're going to learn. You're going to take in information. Hopefully at the end, you'll have new skills and new conversations to go to talk to your child's school about. But I can't wait for you to learn more about the science of reading. What does it mean? What's happening in Minneapolis Public Schools? Because listen, we know that not enough of our kids are leaving our schools with the reading and literacy skills that we need. And we also know that literacy is liberation. So join me today. We get to listen in. Welcome to Belonging in Classrooms. Well, welcome to the podcast. Can you just start by introducing yourself?
Thank you so much, Heather. I am Paula Cole, and I'm the Executive Director for Educators for Excellence Minnesota.
And I know, former MPS teacher.
That's right. I spent 7 years teaching Minneapolis Public Schools, and I'm also serving on my local school board in Richfield. Have been on that position for 9 years now.
I mean, it's a lot of hats.
A lot of hats. And the mom hat.
And the mom.
Yes.
Yes. So I know that your organization has had an incredible amount of dedication, passion for the READ Act. So can you just start by telling us, like, what is the READ Act and why does it matter?
Absolutely. So the READ Act is a series of legislative pieces that were approved by the Minnesota State Legislature back in 2023. It is a series of basically rules that school districts and schools have to follow. They're based on science of reading, and that's just really the best way I have to describe that on a day-to-day basis is just that the former belief that students who learn how to read by default, by immersion in the way that they learn a second language or a first language is not really working for every single child. That some children do need more explicit instruction of phonics and sounds. And so the science of reading supports that. And now Minnesota classrooms need to teach students how to read in this way. And so that's what this whole READ Act conversation is about.
So overall, how do you think the implementation is going? Like, how do you think, are you watching it statewide? Or are you just watching a few districts?
So I'm mostly watching Minneapolis and St. Paul.
Okay.
There's also some suburbs that we work with. We also have teachers in charter schools. So for anyone listening unaware of Educators for Excellence, we are a 2,500 strong group of teachers who are, we help them to really take charge of the education policies that are influencing their profession with the intent to see elimination gaps of racial graduation rates for Black, Brown, and Indigenous students mostly. So we were mortified 2 years prior to the passage of the READ Act because year after year, the data is showing that fewer than 33% of third graders going into fourth grade who are Black, Brown, and Indigenous are able to read at grade level. The same thing happens when they get to eighth grade, and we all know what happens after that. So this is a real crisis. When children don't know how to read, they cannot do math, they cannot do science, they are not able to participate in class. That has a negative impact on the way they're behaving in class. And so that's why this
or
is...
Or once they get to high school, if they go.
If they go to high school, no one wants to feel like they don't know. And our kids know when they don't know.
They absolutely know when they don't know.
And so this is why that is so important. To your question about implementation, the READ Act was passed in 2023.
Okay.
And the Minnesota legislature gave 3 years, beginning with July of 2024, 3 years from there, to districts to incorporate the mandates within the READ Act. So the idea is that it's going to be all staggered. This first year, most districts are starting with phase 1 educators, and those are the educators who are each early childhood, early literacy, K through 2 or K to 3, special education teachers, because they teach a range of skills regardless from age.
Sure.
And there's also obviously any teachers who are specific literacy instructors, coaches. And so phase 1 is happening the last year. It's expected that phase 2 has also completed. And those are any grades starting at 4th grade that have anything to do with literacy instruction. So the implementation, even within districts, is going a very random
That sounds
matters.
right. That was what I was expecting to hear.
Yes. So Educators for Excellence, every year we run the Teacher Action Team. And this year's cohort has 14 teachers.
Okay.
And most of them are from MPS. I would say half of them actually are from St. Paul also and surrounding areas.
Okay.
And what we have found is even within districts, if the instruction is in English, if the instruction in Spanish, some are using different things. And the biggest challenge that I have found that I did not anticipate was challenges within change management.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Like, I think one of the things that's really hard about education is we mandate.
Yes.
We mandate from the top down. And so are there any school districts that you're watching right now in Minnesota that did a better job working with their teachers?
I will say yes. We have some members in Edina. We have members in St. Louis Park. Edina, basically, when the rumbling started about science of reading, they immediately went and started teaching their teachers about science of reading-based instruction practices. Interestingly, though, they went ahead and rolled out a curriculum before MDE had approved curriculum, so now their teachers have actually shifted to curriculum. But the important piece to remember is that science of reading is not a curriculum, it's a framework, and it's a way of teaching.
Okay.
And then the resources that you use to do that need to support
Yes.
all of that. And so
Okay.
curriculum, and especially high quality, is very important so that we're not counteracting the things that you're trying to teach in theory with the practice.
Okay.
But at least districts in the suburbs did do that. They started preparing, because these trainings take many, many hours.
I'm hearing
a
that.
lot of
I'm hearing
time.
the mumbling.
And so I think those districts made a decision to actually start early so that they don't have the pressure, because they saw the writing on the wall. Richfield, similarly, where I serve on the board, we also started before we started thinking, we started piloting also curriculum. Half of our schools to start getting data about how is it working.
That's smart. Okay.
Our curriculum was approved, not originally, but now it is approved.
Okay.
And so I think places like Minneapolis, I would say, it really fell to us. And obviously, I would say about 800 of our members are MPS teachers. So obviously, I don't know about all of the schools.
Sure.
And I don't know about even within schools. But from the teachers that we speak with, that come and talk to us, who have participated in the several focus groups that we have hosted, who came to the Teacher Action Team, there's a survey going live right now. And what they have said is that within MPS, it kind of felt like it's August 2024. We're going to start a new year. And now, teachers, here's this thing that you got to do. But they didn't really heard, like, why is it important? Or why to really be able to say that, understand this is not a curriculum. This is not like when MPS did benchmark a few years ago that we all went for a whole week. And then when you're a teacher for many years, you notice that things come in cycles.
Yeah.
So I remember from my veteran colleagues, they will say, yeah, we tried that in 96. It didn't work. We tried that in this other year.
So true.
So our members are burnt. I mean, our teachers are burnt and rightly so, very cautious and dubious about what is it that the district wants us to do because of what previous history tells them. And then that said, the letters training in particular for based in the science of reading and approved is hours, somewhere between 50 to 70 hours. There's different models for like assistant principals or principals. They have to take fewer hours. But historically, MPS has paid teachers an hourly rate to attend professional development. And now they're not doing that. So you have a lot of teachers who are saying like, this actually is working. Like I can see a difference in my classroom. And at the same time, I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't have the time to do this. There hasn't been differentiated supports for new teachers versus the more veteran teachers. So the expectations are just not really differentiated. And I am very concerned about the implementation. That was quite a long way roundabout to answer your question.
But it helped a lot
about implementation. But those are the things that we are living right now. We've seen St. Paul is doing a better job weaving in.
They've made videos
explaining
it for families, for their educators, right? And so there's just a lot more like, I think we underestimate buy-in in Minneapolis public schools.
Yes.
Vastly, historically, again and again. What do you think? I mean, you kind of touched on some of the barriers and the problems. I think for me, if I put myself in a teacher's shoes, I spent money and time getting trained and being told that this was the way that kids learn to read. And now because somebody way far away from my classroom sends me something and says, no, by the way, even though you went to our institutions and you're licensed by our state, here is the way actually, and you have to do it this many hours and by this date. I wonder, what could we have done better for teachers for this? As a community even.
I think the piece here is, as teachers, we tend to believe a lot, obviously, in ourselves and our own experiences. And depending on where you teach, you have been teaching students who have been learning to read with balanced literacy. The thing is, though, that for balanced literacy to work, you need to have a very early exposure to books from an early age. You need to have habits of reading. My 2 children learn how to read by me reading to them, because children, they see words so many times that they eventually start saying, oh, every time my mom says this, these are the words that I see, and they are able to do it.
Some can.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, but then there is a group of students for whom that doesn't work. It's like kids on the spectrum, on the autism spectrum, sometimes at the milder side of the spectrum, they have the capability of speaking, but they need to be taught language the same way I would learn a second language. And so this is exactly the same that's happening with some of our students, that they need to know, where did that come from? Also, because English is a very irregular language that borrows words from so many places. So when I taught Spanish immersion, basically Spanish is science of reading. You have one sound for every vowel and one sound for the consonants. And when you see that, it is that way forever till you die.
I see.
And so that way you can figure that piece out. But then in English, you have words that come from French, from German, like very arbitrary. I remember learning English as a teenager and thinking, what is wrong with this? Like, why is this so arbitrary? Why does this rule? Like, I know there's exceptions to rules, but it seems like there's like rules.
As soon as you learn a rule,
the
list of exceptions is as big. Yeah.
So I will say to teachers, like, let's trust the research. And I know there's research that can prove whatever point we want to make right now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that research is just the word of truth all the time. However, we need to have that understanding that a lot of our kids are falling through the cracks. A lot of our kids who have parents who have 2 and 3 jobs, parents who are illiterate themselves, students who didn't have the opportunity to go to high quality early childhood or, daycares. And so we need to figure out ways of how we're going to meet all of our students' needs.
Yes. And so the science of reading, it's kind of like, you can learn by balance of reading. You can also cannot. Mm-hmm. And the science of reading, you can absolutely, and everybody can.
Yes.
Right? So that's, if I understand it correctly. So what do you think families should know? If I'm listening to this and I'm a mom and I'm thinking, how would I know if my kid's behind in reading? What should I be asking at school about the READ Act? If I'm caring about my kids, but I wasn't a teacher, what should I know?
Since I was a teacher, the first thing I've always wished parents will ask at conferences is, how is my child doing in compared to their peers inside that classroom?
Solid question.
How are they doing in comparison to the whole school? And how are they doing in comparison to the district and even the state? Because what I find happens is that we have come so used to, especially in urban settings, that half of the kids are behind, that even as teachers, we start thinking that if you're behind, it's okay because half the class is behind. And so there's not a sense of urgency in trying to really speak with the family and say, these are the things that need to happen. When I was a 5th grade teacher, I had a child who was doing grade 1 counting. I really had to engage a family and say, listen, you need to do this for your kid at home, right? There's different levels of engagement.
Yes.
And so that is definitely something that parents always need to do. Because also, we as parents need to have high expectations. I can tell you the number of conversations from principals telling families whom they perceive, for whom they think a C is okay. Oh, your child's doing great. He's passing all their classes. They're getting C's. But but I want my child to have A's. And I want you to think my child can get A's. And so we need to make sure as parents that our families, that their school principals and their children's teachers also have that belief and not just having they're doing okay for an English learner. They're doing okay for being a poor kid. There is no such thing. Kids are able to learn.
Some of my favorite teachers in Minneapolis public schools never talk about poverty, right? They talk about the brilliance of their students.
Yes.
So what should you do if you're concerned that your kiddo's not reading at grade level?
I will say, if that were happening, I would like to know, I think as parents, we have a role to hold our teachers accountable. And not because teachers don't want to be accountable, because teachers are overwhelmed. They don't have a lot of time. They don't have a lot of resources to differentiate instruction. So we almost have to give them a little push and knowing that so basically I would say every 6 weeks, so what new thing are you going to try with my son or my daughter?
That's a really
or
good
my
tip.
Child, right?
Every 6 weeks?
Yeah, every 6 weeks.
What new thing are you trying?
Where are they now? Where do you think my kid is going to go? Let's talk about, just to say, my kid should learn, my kid's behind, but within being behind, you can also advance and should advance so that you can eventually catch up. So being very clear, so it's October, mid-October, we generally have our first parent-teacher conferences. The kid's behind. Where do you think my kid should be in January? And then go in January and find out.
I really love that. All these years I've been talking about education and I've never had anyone say that. That's really brilliant.
You have to, the intentions, also, great intentions, but is it working? And then for parents to be like, okay, obviously that didn't work. So what else are you going to try? What else has worked for you in the past? Like we should interview our teachers in those ways and help their learning along, and knowing that we are also very committed, because then also teachers are going to say, this parent really is being supportive. What can the teacher ask you to do at home then as a parent to support that growth?
Always. I always tried to give, when I was a teacher, little toolkits to the parents. Can you do this for 10 minutes? I have a dream of making activities in the car, because I think that car time can be really valuable. Can you count by twos in the car? Can you count by threes in the car? Can you do your vowel sounds in the car, right? As a former teacher, those were all things that were happening in our car all the time. Car time is like, or bus time is
or grocery shopping, anything. I am a math crazy person, and I can tell you math is everywhere. I really enjoy weaving in physical education with math, like it's counting moves, and it's really everywhere. You can bring it into all of the different conversations you have, especially those that. How many of us asked ourselves when we were growing up, like, when am I ever going to use this?
Yes.
And then you do, like when you're thinking about the temperature, you're talking about when you're in the car, you're talking about speed and time. So yeah, absolutely. Like using everything that we can as a learning opportunity is very important.
You mentioned something about surveys. What are teachers who've done the science of reading or the letters training, what are they telling you about their experiences now teaching everyone?
So the survey, the preliminary results, the survey is going to be live for another 2 weeks. Okay. But right now, what we are hearing teachers say is that the trainings have made a positive difference. Okay. About 78% of the teachers are saying this is making a difference already, which is great to see.
We like to hear that.
And then similarly, a lot of teachers don't really have a lot of time to do the training. Like there is not a specific timeline within MPS. You have some teachers who are saying like, oh yes, I want to do this because this is what's going to help my kids. And you have other teachers, I would love to do this, but I don't have time. Yeah. And then there are others saying, I'm just not going to do it all together because I don't know what this is. And I haven't been persuaded to understand that this is the thing that I have to do. And so to your point about buy-in, I sometimes wish like we could be like a sports coach and like, let's do this thing. It's going to be painful. We're going to cry. But have this vision at the end of the school year that your students will have grown a year and a half, 2 years within 1 year. And how much better that's going to make it for you when the kids that are coming to your class next year have also gone through that.
Yeah. So it's always so hard. I remember early in my career, I managed a small business. And when you don't have enough and you're behind, it's really, really hard to do the work to get ahead. I remember being like so exhausted. And so I think that's like teaching perpetually. I wish that with our state, when they mandated that, they would have asked teachers with this mandate, what would it take from us for you to be able to do this with rest and joy and feeling appreciated?
That is true. And at the same time, legislators are really educators.
That is the truest thing ever.
Which is a lot why at our organization, we want educators to be there. Giving those, that testimony. And there's also something that districts are not receiving the appropriate financial support. This is in big part, there's been funding for curriculum, there's been funding for some professional development training, even within a year of passage, like some money was allocated. But then places like Minneapolis and St. Paul, they're so big that the money allocated to them is just a drop in the bucket that is not going to be enough to pay everybody. So then you have to make the decision, okay, I guess I'm not going to pay everybody. And so we need our legislators to, like, I am very appreciative of the way that, I mean, if you think about in comparison to other things that have happened, this was a fairly quick
Yes, it was
turnaround.
fast, yes.
And so I want to give them grace and show gratitude that they listen to the situation. And at the same time, we need those same legislators to fight really, really hard to listen from the school leaders. What is it that you need?
I totally agree.
So that this can actually work for your district, so that they can understand the
Yes.
hidden cost
Yes.
of all of that. Right now, you have you're also not really giving districts ideas of what to do and how to take existing opportunities. So you have a lot of people trying things without knowing like it is going to work.
That's where that variation that you were saying comes from.
And I'm very worried. For example, I know at MPS, for obvious reasons about the limited time and no funding to pay teachers PD hours, but they're basically dropping everything focused on this.
Yeah.
But we also need to grow in math. We need
Yeah.
to grow in science. Like we
Yeah.
cannot just become focused on the one thing and then drop everything else. And
That's so true. That's so true.
so equipping the districts, the leaders with the knowledge. There's states that are way ahead of us. There's places like Arkansas, Tennessee have been doing this for years, have funding allocated to make sure that there's like one specialized coach per building, supporting and coaching, because we forget that also teachers need not only the initial coaching, but they need ongoing coaching and support, observations that are not punitive.
Yes, yes.
Being able to model lessons and strategies for
Yes,
them. Like this is
yes.
a complete turnaround, wraparound supports needed that are not happening. And what my biggest fear is that year 3 is going to come and go, and we're going to hear ourselves saying, well, it didn't work. And now what? Because it does work, but you do have to implement it with fidelity, and you need to follow along. It's a whole formula. That's just one step. So I want us to do better at getting buy-in from our teachers.
Totally.
I want us to get better at helping our parents help us as educators with the things that they need to help us do day after day. And we need to basically at sometimes take one for the team. And like as educators, to invest in our own learning, because it's going to pay off in so many ways.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on today,
My
for sharing
pleasure.
this. I learned so much, and I'm so thankful for your work and for the fact that Educators for Excellence is really watching this. I know at the coalition, we're so thankful that you're a member, and we're so grateful that you're holding up that part of the work for us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and always a pleasure to spend time and to talk about the things I'm so passionate about.
So much passion for education.